Merry Christmas, everybody. Welcome to the Rusty Hammer Forge Christmas Special Blacksmith Gifts. So, what we're doing here is we're doing a barbecue set. Now, this came about from one of my clients, longtime clients, big time supporter of Rusty Hammer Forge, really appreciate him. And he says, hey, I want to get my son this gift, and it's going to pair with another gift he's getting. You do cool stuff, you know, I want these 4 items and the rest is for you to do. I'm like, awesome, let's do it, you know. So we started doing it, and I dug the steel out for this. This is like 100 and let's see here, 100 and probably 140-year-old steel. Yeah, and it came out of a grain cribbage here in Garfield County. It is really cool stuff to work with. Really nice steel. It forges really well. I mean, you can cold forge it, you know, relatively well, and it's just really forgiving. It's really nice stuff. So, but yeah, so we're working on this fork right now, and pretty traditional 2-prong fork. You know, the lead in, how you split it, how you draw it out, you know, set it up, and everything like that. There's nothing really super, you know, different about how anybody else makes a 2-prong fork. So, you know, I'm using a lot of the press here because we're not starting out with like square or, you know, round steel of the size we need. We're actually forging this out of these strips I cut off, and I had a completely different, you know, direction I wanted to go in. At first, these were going to be like, oh, we're going to put old style handles on them, basic hidden tangs with bolster caps and turn freaking handles, and that would have been cool, and I will make that set, but it just wasn't what I was wanting. And I'm thinking, oh, well, let's do the teardrop, you know, the old teardrop screwdrivers, you know, yeah, you know what I'm talking about. You've seen them. Everybody's seen them. You know, really old, you know, very, very, very good, you know, tools. I was like, hey, let's put handles like that on. I'm like, no, it just wasn't, you know, really piquing my interest to do that. And so I went back to my staple, which is the Blacksmith handles and, you know, wraps and everything. So it turned out really, really good. And, you know, it was a lot of fun to make. This was like the first big project I'd had in a couple months. You know, a lot of smithing involved. My forearms were really, really sore doing this. It was ridiculous. It was very, very ridiculous. The amount of soreness that I had in my forearms and my wrists. But we got through it, and we're all good. So, Chapter 2 starts. We're going to be doing the one piece of this project that the client didn't know they were getting. I figured you can't have a barbecue set without a carving knife. You just can't use any knife with this set, right? You just spend all this time building a fork, and you're going to do all the other pieces. You got to build a knife. So we're building it. Now, this steel is probably like an L6, 5160, somewhere around in there. It is a spring steel. Came off the back of a road grader, and for like, I don't know. I think it's for picking rocks and stuff. I don't know. But it's really good steel. Worked out really nice. And yeah, we're giving this one. This is the gift from Rusty Hammer Forge to the client to say thank you for all the years of support and everything. And they didn't have to pay a dime for this. It's pretty cool. So, and they eventually figured it out through the updates and everything. This was going to be the extra thing that they got. So pretty standard stuff though, smithing a knife. Nothing really spectacular that you haven't seen me do before. And you know, we're going through every bit of weighted hammers, the different sizes and everything that I have in the shop. Maybe not all of them, but a good amount of them to get this project done. But yeah, it's pretty standard smithing practice here. The only thing not standard is how long the tang side is and what we end up doing with it. There's not a lot of bladesmiths out there that do knives like this. I absolutely love these knives. They're my go-to, most favorite thing to make. You know, because it just has everything in it that screams blacksmith. And you know, that's another big reason why I was like, do we have to make a knife for this? It's just, this project is just screaming, make me, you know. And so we isolated our tang here from the bolster area going into the knife profile, and then we started rounding it off. You know, like I said, pretty standard stuff. And I was doing a lot of this on the press just because this was, like I said, the first real big smithing project that I'd gotten into in a couple months. And, you know, because we've been working on the house and working on the profit and all this other stuff. It was just the smithing in the shop hadn't really, you know, been happening. So this was like a really cool deal to get into, and I was super excited to make this project. So we're just continuing to isolate the tail here, the tang, and yeah, I mean, you could take this in any direction at this point, but realistically, you know, once you get it neck down, you're not going to want to flatten that back out. It's for how big the knife is, you want a pretty robust tang in there. And so if you did decide to take this in a different direction, you may have to take some weight out of your blade, because the tang itself just wouldn't be enough. It might be, you know, you might be able to get away with it. I know back in the day they had the old stick tangs and everything, but it's not something we like to do today. So, but yeah, this was a pretty standard forging session. Chapter 3, we're doing a steak turner. You can't have a barbecue set without a steak turner. You just can't. I mean, come on. You got to have the steak turner, and it's pretty simple, real easy. The hardest part about this was drawing it all out of that piece of steel. Now, these pieces right here are offcuts. So you saw me shorten the fork handle, and you saw me shorten the knife handle. So everything from this point that is dealing with making handles is all drop. It's all cutoffs and everything of one thing or another that we stretch out and reuse that steel. So we didn't have to I didn't have to go through and cut a bunch of this steel, especially since at this point in time I'd used my last cutting wheel to actually cut this in the bandsaw. My bandsaw blades broke, so they were all in the process of being shipped to me, and so we were able to get this project done without needing to cut any more steel. And my plasma cutter is out of commission right now because I don't have it plumbed to the air compressor right now. So, but yeah, it's standard smithing practices here. So anybody that's looking to get into blacksmithing, this is a project that you could easily do after learning how to swing a hammer. There is nothing in this project that isn't easy for a beginner to do. You could easily go out and make these. You just have to have a want to do it. Chapter 4 is a ladle. Even the ladle is kind of a beginner's project. There's nothing special about it. You just have to figure out, you know, what you're doing, you know. And after you've had a little bit of time behind the anvil and a hammer in your hand, this project is pretty easy to do. You're not doing anything spectacular. That, you know, it's not like we're forge welding a handle to this or anything like that, doing thin metal to thick metal type forging. We're not doing that. So this is a pretty standard, you know, easy thing. And yeah, I dropped it on the floor. Good thing it popped right back on the anvil for me. But yeah, it's pretty easy. This is just using these are shot puts that I have. You know, they're still good for shot putting and stuff, but I mainly use them in my shop. And that little bottom swage there is just the the bell. It's like a 3/4 to 2-inch bell reducer for plumbing that I use in my forges, and I had a piece laying in my scrap pile. Now right now we're stretching this steel out. We're planishing it. We're taking a lot of the really heavy marks out of it. Still kind of stretching it a little bit, but not a lot. We're just doing a lot of cold forging here. Got a nice little bowl, and there's your ladle. Now here's where we actually start connecting pieces of steel together. Now we have 2 of these handles that we did, right? And I only showed one because they're identical. So we didn't show me making 2 of the same exact handle going on the spatula and the ladle. But yeah, I didn't think you guys needed to watch that. And you know, when I wasn't filming it, it was a whole lot quicker. Let me tell you what. You know, because I didn't have to worry about recording or anything like that. I just busted on through. Now this little tool we're using right here is a bottom swage for rounding off round stuff. And it has 3 different sizes in there. And we actually have a top swage for it. I'm going to build one of these for the press that have a top and bottom, so you just stick your piece in there and run it back through, and you'll have, I think that goes like 3/8 to 1/4 to I think 3/16 or something like that. And you can see on there we left a little bit of a knob on the end. That's where our connection point's going to be. But yeah, I mean, you can leave all this stuff in there, all those little wiggly wobblies, and you could leave that in there, and have it resemble like a tree branch. Coincidentally, this is how you would make like decorative tree branches and stuff, or vines. Is you would just hammer it and lifting your tong hand and dropping your tong hand and stuff like that. So now that we're actually shaping using the shot put to shape that outer piece, so we can then rivet our handle to our bowl. Like I said, pretty standard stuff. This isn't a hugely intricate project. The biggest thing is learning. Once you learn how to swing a hammer, all of this stuff is pretty easy. You may have a little bit of an issue getting certain things to look right, but it's still beginner friendly. Chapter 5 is the Blacksmith Spatula. I call these, hamburger flippers, but there's a spatula, I guess. Cut this out of the same steel. This is pretty easy. I mean, that's why I didn't show. I mean, the biggest thing, the spatula is real easy. It's like one of the easiest ones to do. Not a lot of forging involved in it. I mean, you could if you're doing an integral, and we'll do an integral here later on, where the spatula is integral, the ladle is integral, everything's integral. It's all one piece, forged up, one piece of metal. But yeah, that's it. Cut it out, clean it up, stamp it, you're good to go. And then you start working on the handle for it. Just center punching it up. Now here's the thing. I don't know if you saw on the ladle, but what you do, you don't want to drill both your holes at one time. You drill one hole, get that riveted on with the one, and then you drill another hole. You have 2 holes in your handle, but you only drill one hole at a time in your spatula, in your ladle, in whatever you're doing. And that way you can make sure everything's straight and ready to go, and you're not trying to like, oopsie, it's all off kilter, and then adjusting it on the fly there. And this is kind of I started calling this the shovel spatula. Chapter 6, this is when we do the snaketail wrap. And we're just going to do it on one. We're going to do it on the knife here. We don't need to show you everything, because it's a snaketail wrap is a snaketail wrap. Doesn't matter how tight it is. Doesn't matter what if you're wrapping the tail around the main shaft, it's a snaketail wrap, which is different than a dragon tail and different than a squirrel tail. So there's a lot of things. Remember that. It's different. So, but yeah, take a pair of tongs. And I actually had one of my students show me this, because I was like, okay, now go do your tail. And I had a different way of doing this back in the day. And then I had one of my students who was a metal guy, he was a metal fab guy. He picked up a pair of tongs and started doing that. I'm like, dude, I am stealing that method. That is the greatest way of doing it. You know, sometimes, you know, new techniques that you don't even think about come from really inexperienced people. All right, now we get to add the beeswax protective coating in Chapter 7. Now, we ended up doing this with the knife as well, which isn't done a lot of times. And all you do is you heat up your piece, take some beeswax, and you're burning that beeswax on. And it's a pretty durable coating on there. It protects it from rust, it protects it from, you know, just general oxidation, and it looks really good too. Now, one thing you do have to keep in mind is if the client is maybe allergic to bees or has had any reaction to beeswax in the past, and I do ask them, hey, have you had any reaction to bees in the past? And more often than not, they don't. But this is the knife. Now, nobody does this to the knife. Now, I'm not heating the blade up hot enough to change the temper. I'm only heating it up hot enough to burn the wax on. So, to changing the temper of this, you're going to be getting into the, you know, 400 degree range. We're pushing to that, right? It's getting hot, but it's not getting so hot that it absolutely takes it out. So, Merry Christmas, everybody. Thank you very much, and Happy New Year.